What's up, SMITE fans? Wraithyn here. I'm back, something a little new and different. We've got our very first ever Olympians meeting recap video. I was totally inspired by what the Paladins Council of Champions does after every single one of their virtual meetings, and I felt like this was the best way to get the word out to as many people as possible, because there's some that don't use Reddit, some don't use Twitter. YouTube, I can point everybody to, no matter what it is, and get them the information from these meetings. The meeting we had was March 17th, so this is kind of everything that we brought to Titan Forge and also their responses back to us. This does come with a bit of a disclaimer, though. We had a lot of suggestions in the Reddit and Twitter threads, and some of those aren't going to be addressed for a variety of reasons. The first one is if there's an extremely low number of people requesting it. Like, bro, you gotta buff Kukulkan again. Come on. Something completely outrageous and outlandish. Like, Hades needs to be able to move at his ultimate. He's suffering right now stats wise. He's like the second most winning god in the game. 3, we discussed it in the meeting, but we're not allowed to talk publicly about it. So if somebody had a really good suggestion and there's a buff or a nerf or something planned because of that, typically until they figure that all out, they don't like us talking about it. And then 4 would be we ran out of time during the meeting, and we generally try to follow up via Discord directly with it, which is kind of just an ongoing discussion. So let's dive right into that. Roll that beautiful game footage. Beautiful game footage. Basically, we try and get an active level of engagement from the community, bring concerns to these meetings, and make sure that Titan Forge can accurately hear what the player base is saying. We have players from all varying skill levels, so folks who are very casual players all the way up to masters players and even former SPL coaches. We have a great visibility into the entire community. It's awesome. So let's get on to our first section, community and system feedback. What this is anything that are community concerns or general systemic things with the game, like I don't like how this queue system is or something like that. So we're gonna dive right in. First up is bonus balance, and a lot of frustrations around what patch am I on. I saw this update show and all these changes 2 weeks later. Some of them are out, some of them aren't. And Titan Forge is actively working on a what's new in-game pop-up for each of these bonus balance changes. Second up is general server instability across all geographies for the past week or so. Just so everybody knows, the internet is experiencing a crazy high load and a massive increase in DDoS attacks as well, with people trying to take advantage of all this additional traffic. They're trying to blow out all the overhead that these systems have built in and take down games and banks and everything else. I actually used to work for a company that protected against stuff like that, and I've heard from a number of my friends that SMITE is not the only game that's having problems. Tarkov went down earlier this week. I think it was Thursday. That said, Titan Forge does have a community ask. If you have a really bad game and other players on your team are also experiencing issues, not you alone, send an Olympian the following: a match ID, the server region, and the rough time frame when the match was played. They can actually go investigate these servers and make sure there's not something wrong with them. Next up is the Loki rework. Definitely more communication coming on this. Ajax had an interview with Isaiah, did a live stream, and also posted a blog to address the concerns of most Loki mains. I'll link that blog and that video in the comment section below, but the long story short is they plan on moving forward with the Loki rework and have addressed a number of the concerns that the Loki mains had after the initial post. Next up, we actually asked about clan updates and maybe some sort of scrim finder functionality, right? I got a team of 5. I want to play against a team of 5. How do we make that happen, right? So as of right now, there's no new clan or scrim finder plans. They 100% recognize clans are a great way to get social with people playing SMITE, and they're still scoping things out internally to figure out what they can get on the schedule. This has not dropped off the radar. This is a priority for them. They know that this is going to be a good piece of functionality if they get it right, and they want to make sure they get it right. Next up is anti-toxicity. This is a huge priority for this year, and Titan Forge are constantly looking for ways to improve their current system. Keep an eye out during future updates for changes to the anti-toxicity functionality. Things like this generally aren't as simple as they seem. It's multiple departments, multiple people. You have folks that are trying to either evade bans or language filters. If you have suggestions for Titan Forge, let us know. This is definitely a priority for them this year, and your feedback is totally welcome. From my own personal experience, this has nothing to do with the meeting or Titan Forge's position, but players a lot of times ask for immediate and specific notifications and feedback around the punishment that somebody receives. This is super unproductive and has no bearing other than to BM somebody when they get banned. All you're gonna do is message somebody and go, ha, that's what you get for throwing my rank game or something like that. Lastly, from a systems perspective, duel. Titan Forge are actively looking for duel feedback. How does the new map feel? How's the pace? They know about concerns with MMR. Do you guys have any other feedback if you're a dual main or you're somebody who plays it casually? We know about the ranking system. We know about the TP. We know about the MMR. They're looking into that. That does it for community and system concerns. Reminder, we are actively looking for feedback on bad servers, ways to combat toxicity more effectively, and your thoughts on duel. Let's move on to God balance. All right, first up is Mulan. Several, really nearly all of us, gave feedback that she felt super underwhelming. Titan Forge are aware of this sentiment, and they're going to take a look at her. Don't worry, they're looking into Mulan. They wanted to see how she shook out once they released her. Kukulkan. This was on a number of people's lists. Still feels strong, and a bunch of us felt that the 2 feels miserable with how much CDR Kukulkans are speccing into these days. That said, he has dropped considerably from number 3 to 18 in win rate, which is still strong, and they're giving him a chance to stabilize before they look at him further. Next up is Ratatasker. I specifically asked how he's doing play-wise. He doesn't seem very impactful and heavily overshadowed by a bunch of other gods that are in the meta right now. It doesn't seem like you'd ever pick him for anything other than super early game pressure, which isn't really as relevant as it has been in past seasons. They're going to be looking into Rat. The next 3 gods are actually tabled for our next meeting, and Design's going to take a look at them and their stats and how the recent changes have affected them. But the first one up is Ares. And my question was, did blink changes kill the god? How's he doing? He's already a hard god to play, but he's actually kind of popular, especially in things like Arena. Does he need help? Second was Ra. Ra feels underwhelming and is fully outshadowed by every other mage that I can think of. I asked that they take a look at Ra. His kit's super basic. He doesn't really feel like he has any wow factor. He brings anything to the table in this current meta. They're going to take a look at that and get back to us. Lastly, Daji. I commented that she feels kind of meh compared to others. Bottom of the pack in terms of win rate compared to other assassins. Definitely does not feel good to play after the blink nerf. Titan Forge is going to be looking into Daji as well. I'm sure they'd love to get these gods into a more consistent play rate and win rate. So we'll see more in the next meeting. And then lastly, I kind of asked about junglers in general. I asked if they had any plans to continue nerfing the heck out of all of my favorite gods. And there are no plans at this time for heavy assassin nerfs. That about does it for the God and balance questions section of the meeting. Do you have any other gods you want us to ask about? Please leave a comment below or hit us up on Twitter. We'd be happy to ask. Or at least have a conversation about how that god's doing stats wise. All right, time for the last section, which is where we spend a good portion of our time for each person's turn. Items and relics. First up is Blink. Everybody knows the recent changes. It had its range reduced from 55 units, which is a long way, down to 45 units, which is a very short distance. And the general consensus is the change was fine. It's still an extremely popular relic, and it's actually kind of decent. The worst feeling parts of the new relic are not being able to get through walls you used to be able to get through, and the fact that you're in heavy poke range if you want to try and use it to initiate a team fight. Several community members asked for a change back to 50 units instead of 45 with an increased cooldown. Personally, I thought that the out of combat time could be reduced so you could still use it during team fights. And a lot of folks asked for variable ranges, where the unupgraded version was 45 units and the upgraded version was 55. Design and many of us players did not like the idea of variability. Players would need to relearn the blink range every single time, which isn't ideal and feels really bad for muscle memory. As of right now, there are no planned blink changes. Let's see how this all shakes out. Personally, it took me a few nights to get used to the new range. It still feels like a strong relic. All right, new relics. The question was asked about adding more options to relic trees. Design would prefer to keep this simple, as many people already are bad at buying them to begin with. For now, they'd love to keep it simple. That said, if you have new relic ideas for ones that don't currently exist in the game, rather than a tree off of something that does, Titanforge would love to hear feedback on what you think would be cool. I personally will give skins to the top 3 suggestions that we get back, so either drop them in the comments or hit me up on Twitter with what you think would make an awesome relic. Next up was Crit. This one encompasses a number of items and the entire Hunter class, but there's been some concern around Crit being too strong right now, specifically with Rage and the nerfs to Crit counters like Hide of the Nemean and Spectral not being strong enough. Hunters actually don't currently have crazy representation at the top end of stats, so no plan changes at this time. But you never know. If it continues to be a community feedback problem, maybe they'll take a look at it. There were also 2 boots questions, one around Shoes of Focus and maybe a cost reduction to bring them in line with Shoes of the Magi. And the general sentiment was they're already super popular. People are buying them anyway. Why would we want to buff the cost of them just to make it even? No plan changes to Shoes of Focus at this time. There was another concern around Warrior Tabby being picked up less often on Hunters, which is totally fine. They're still used on Assassins and Warriors. For a long time, Ninja Tabby wasn't picked up at all. This is in a great state. All right, the last section is Mage itemization. First up is Spear of the Magus. There was a lot of comments on Twitter and Reddit that this item feels underwhelming except on certain characters and that you're almost forced into Divine or Deso. Design's comment was the goal was to nerf flat pen at the beginning of the season, but they'll keep an eye on flat pen items to make sure players feel like there's variability and that these items aren't essential in your build. For a long time, only characters that itemize Magus were played, and they want to avoid that again, so they're reluctant to buff the item. Next up, Ring of Hecate. This is pretty much a wide sentiment shared by the entire group. It feels kind of useless. Design came back and said buffs for this item are reasonable, and they'll be in discussion with the balance team around the passive and lifesteal in general. It seems like people are itemizing into it quite a bit. So that'll be a topic of discussion over the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out there. The last item we talked about was Soul Gem. It feels super niche, and it would feel better as a burst power item with some of the feedback that we got from the community and some of the other Olympians. Design actually feels the exact opposite. They would rather focus the item anywhere but more burst damage, give it more health, more healing, literally anything else, because more burst damage or tying into other heavy damage items would just literally make it a second Soul Reaver, but they've noted that it feels bad except on 1 to 2 gods. So we might see some changes there. All right, guys, that about wraps it up for this video. Let me know in the comments section or on Twitter or on Reddit or wherever we post this, whether or not you feel like these videos are helpful. Please remember that just because we didn't cover your specific topic doesn't mean it wasn't discussed in the meeting. We get a lot of these requests and we try and kind of funnel the ones that are most popular among the community. If you want to have a direct discussion about this, we have an Olympians Discord, which I'll also link below in the comments section. We're more than happy to chat with you about it there. We got a lot of great minds in the Discord that can comment. Quick reminder that we are still looking for things like dual feedback on bad servers, ways to combat toxicity, other gods you think that need to be looked at, and also other items you feel need a buff or nerf as well. Remember, guys, the Olympians are your voice to the devs, so please don't be shy about reaching out to us. We are constantly available. A number of us are extremely active on Discord and Twitter. We are here to be your voice, so don't be shy about approaching us. We're happy to help. That's what we're here for. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, let me know what you thought. If you like this, make sure you subscribe and like the video so we can do more of these, and I'll see you guys in the next one.